what the challenges are and what we are trying to do. I just picked that when we talk about the 1968 bill, we talk about refugee recognition and control. I think it's in the naming. We talk Control Act. But in 2024, we're talking management.
Yes, indeed.
What has changed? Is it coming internationally? Is it Botswana being progressive? What is going on here?
Yes, it is Botswana becoming progressive. And we have to also, in Botswana, change with the times. As you realize, the current act talks of control, recognizing that one is a refugee, but determining how to control that person. But we are now coming up with a management bill that looks at the whole person and also tries to align practices of the international international law and the United Nations.
Okay.
Yes.
Now I'm curious to find out. We grew up going to school with children of refugees. What were the challenges with the 1968 Act that we are trying to address with this particular bill now? What were the challenges? What were the loopholes?
Well, being uprooted and going into a strange country with a different language and perhaps cultures that you are not used to is obviously the first challenge. Further, that child was uprooted and the whole innocence was taken away in seconds. And that obviously will have challenges. They have to now adapt to a new country, to a new culture. The way we do things as Botswana is not necessarily the way other countries do those things. So that changed, and it is a culture shock.
Okay. I'm just going to quote an article that came out in the Daily News, I think,
Yes.
sometime in last year, where Minister Shamukuni said, we are looking at the act in itself because we're trying to come up with durable solutions to the plight of refugees.
Yes.
What current challenges are they facing as a result of how the law reads, how the law is interpreted, and how it is implemented?
Yes. You know, the manner in which Botswana has been dealing with refugee control, most of our refugees are at Duki, the Duki camp, and most have lived in that camp for the longest of times. Of course, some can choose to go look for jobs. They always have to then come back to the refugee or at any given time advise where they are. However, you talked of change, and Botswana is now doing what it can, not to talk of control, but management, but also adhering to the United Nations refugee management, which is very instructive, and also the Organization of African Unity, when AU was still Organization of African Unity. It also had laws in place regarding refugee management. So it's a way of now not controlling and just taking people and keeping them, but also giving them that opportunity to partake in the Botswana society's way of life, and it gives them the opportunity to even ask for citizenship. Over and above that, they can also get work permits to start working. So there is that aspect of employment that is available to them.
Okay, that's coming as a result of the management bill now that we're talking about.
It has always been like that, but it makes it and enables it to be better manageable.
Okay.
But over and above that, if we just maybe talk about the Act as is, it would be a committee, an advisory committee to the minister, which would determine whether that person could be deemed a refugee. But now we have stages which one has to undergo, and by virtue of no longer being a control mechanism, there are committees in place, and will even, after the bill has been assented and becomes law, we will have a commissioner of refugees who will be overseeing the management of this new act that Botswana wants to have, which is still a bill. Parliament debated over the bill, and there was unison of purpose that indeed this is what we need.
I'm trying to figure out, I think a few weeks ago we saw a family being integrated into a community, and I want to believe it wasn't the first. I'm curious to find out if already we are integrating and we are assimilating into communities. What else are we trying to do? And if we take examples maybe of a child that grows up in Dugu with the new act, what do we hope to see for themselves once, like you're saying, once it really becomes into law and it's operationalized? What do we hope to see for that 5-year-old in Dugu as they grow throughout their stages in life, practically speaking, so that we can understand what we are trying to do with the law?
Yes. The law seeks to make things easy. Botswana has done exceptionally well, because the United Nations states that at least give them primary education. In Botswana, they are getting primary education and secondary. So as a country, we are going over and beyond the bare minimum. And over and above that, it's not just about taking a refugee and keeping them enclosed, but now we are giving them opportunities within Botswana. Of course, balancing everything with the needs also of Botswana, or persons who have Botswana citizenship. But we are saying it's not just about keeping you enclosed or encamped at a certain place, but there is some things that we can learn from you, and there are certain things that you can learn from us. The interesting thing about the situation that you talked about, the event that we had where there was that reintegration, some were refugees from Zimbabwe who had left Botswana. They were actually Botswana, but one of them at a very young age went to Zimbabwe with the mother. The mother came back, and she also decided to come back. So most of the time, and I say this because sometimes we see refugees as aliens, but when you even look at myself, I have heard of a Tshipinare somewhere around Bloemfontein. So it means there's always been this migration, and we are actually one body of persons. It's just that we are separated by borders sometimes. Okay. Yes.
It's interesting we talk migration, at the same time we're talking refugees, and migration on its own has got its own issues and its own challenges.
Indeed.
So when we talk about refugees, just for the benefit of the viewer, per the Act, who exactly are we talking about? What determines that this one is a refugee by description?
Yes. A refugee is someone who has a country of origin, but who fled that country of origin by virtue of certain circumstances. Sometimes it's war, sometimes it's genocide. So it's someone who had a country of origin, there was peace and tranquility, something happened and they had to run for their lives.
Okay.
Yes.
So can I be a financial refugee?
A financial refugee?
Yeah, but can I run? Because finances are a big issue. And we're talking survival here. We're talking lives at stake.
Well, every case is judged on its merits. One can come maybe saying, we come from a very mineral-rich area, but it has been taken by thugs, for lack of a better word, and hence anything to do with persons who were there, they are simply chopped to pieces because the idea is to now take territory there. So there was an element of financial, but someone had to run.
Okay.
Yes.
You earlier on you referenced that refugees are everywhere, but we also have a camp in Botswana.
Yes.
Let's just for a minute focus on the camp in Botswana, the status of refugees in Botswana, where we are, and are we able to, when we talk from a management perspective, what are we able to do and what are the challenges, even outside, the law?
Yes, the United Nations has assisted greatly. They always come alongside us, and they actually set up an office at Duki to also assist. So they do assist technically and also financially. Could you state your question again, because I just then dwelt
just the
on
state of refugees in Botswana, looking at Duki camp.
Yes.
As a country, are we able to manage? How are we managing
Oh,
it?
yes.
Yes.
I believe I mentioned the United Nations because they also assist us financially and in kind with other technical means. It's always an added burden, but it's a burden that countries, by virtue of having ratified the treaties, should shoulder. And one cannot really say, by virtue of having persons at Duki, Botswana is burdened financially. The assistance that comes, and government also does what it can to facilitate.
Okay.
Yes.
But then what about my plight as a citizen, as somebody who lives within the host community in Duki, for example? We're coming up with this law to come up with durable, sustainable solutions for them. But what about me within the community, me as a citizen of Botswana? Why are we doing this?
And I will say, by virtue of your being a Botswana and with a moral right to be proud to be Botswana, that's what Boto is. So we are inculcating that spirit of Boto, that we may have peace and tranquility, but by virtue of being blessed with the peace, with the minerals, with the good roads, with having a house to sleep in, there are persons that suffer, and we can also come alongside them. So it's that goodwill, but also mindful that we are a community of nations.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tshipinare, the Deputy Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Justice, speaking to us about the new bill, which is the Refugees Recognition and Management Bill of 2024, which really seeks to repeal and replace the Refugees Recognition and Controls Act of 1968. Speaking to us as citizens of the importance of having such a progressive law, because we are a community of nations, and we may know peace now, but we can never foretell the future. So it is actually important that we assist fellow global citizens to ensure that we come up with lasting and sustainable solutions to some of the challenges that they are currently facing. Botswana, of course, doing far beyond what is expected of them to ensure that we are able to assist refugees. Coming at the top of the hour is Benson Puthero with the 7 o'clock news bulletin.